Today, we're diving into something pretty incredible. We're talking about how Nigeria's entire legal system is making a monumental leap, from a world drowning in paper files to a digital-first future. It is a huge, huge deal, so let's get right into it. To really get the scale of this change, you have to understand where things started. And this quote from Justice M.D. Abubakar just nails it. The courtroom has always been resistant and conservative. We're talking about a world built on centuries of tradition, precedent, and paper, a world that moved at its own very slow pace.
Right, but here's the thing. The digital world doesn't really care about tradition. It waits for absolutely no one. In today's super fast-paced global economy, that old paper-waste way of doing things just wasn't going to cut it anymore. Change wasn't just a nice idea. It became an absolute necessity.
So that brings us right to our big question for today. How is Nigeria's legal system actually doing it? How is it logging on to the future? What does this digital revolution look like? On the ground. And who's leading the charge? Okay, so first things first. Before we can really appreciate the shiny new solutions, we have to understand the problem. And for a very, very long time, the problem was a legal system that was literally buried under mountains and mountains of paper. Just think about it. This analog system created so many issues. You've got these enormous records taking up massive amounts of physical space, which, of course, is just wildly inefficient. Files could get lost, they could get damaged, or even worse, they could be tampered with. Communication was slow as a crawl, data security was a constant nightmare, and forget about working remotely. That was basically impossible. So how do you fix a system that's literally drowning in paper? Well, this is where the story gets really interesting. Faced with all these challenges, a major player in the legal world decided to step up and lead a nationwide tech turnaround. And that key player is the Nigerian Bar Association, also known as the NBA. The association has taken on this absolutely monumental task of spearheading a nationwide digital transformation. The goal? To drag the entire profession, kicking and screaming if necessary, into the 21st century. Now, their approach wasn't just, hey, let's buy a bunch of new computers. No, it was a really smart four-step strategy. First, you assess what's actually needed and find the bottlenecks. Then, you define what success actually looks like with clear goals. From there, you pick the right tools for the job. And then, and this is probably the most important step, you roll out the new systems and actually train the lawyers to use them. A huge piece of this whole strategy was creating a new rule book for the profession. You can't just throw a bunch of new tech at a problem and hope for the best, right? You need a framework. And that led to some brand new guidelines for a digital age. So these new guidelines, which were launched in 2024, are built on four main pillars. First, a roadmap for IT solutions in law firms. Second, guides for using AI responsibly. Third, rules for privacy, making sure everyone's in line with data protection laws. And finally, super important protocols for cybersecurity to keep all that sensitive legal data safe. But this whole transformation goes way beyond just guidelines on paper. It's also about putting powerful new tools directly into the hands of lawyers. Tools that are completely changing how they work every single day. One of the really cool innovations here is built on blockchain. So, what is that really? Well, in the simplest terms, it's a secure digital ledger. Once a record is added, it is basically impossible to change. That makes it the perfect tool for creating a tamper-proof record. Okay, so why does blockchain matter here? Because it's the engine powering the NBA's new digital stamp. The old way involved a physical stamp and seal. It was slow, manual, and way too easy to forge. The new system? It's a blockchain-powered digital stamp that's built right into Microsoft Word. It's instant, it's easy to verify, and it's completely tamper-proof. It is a massive, massive leap forward. Of course, new tools are pretty useless if people don't know how to use them. That's why upskilling is such a core part of this whole thing. The MBA has launched initiatives like EMCPD, which is a digital learning platform with on-demand courses, plus a bunch of webinars on hot topics like AI, all to make sure every lawyer can keep up. It's also really important to remember that this isn't happening in a vacuum. Nigeria's big push is part of a much wider boom in legal tech all across Africa. You've got startups popping up everywhere, innovating in everything from online legal services to practice management software. So when you put it all together, the new guidelines, the new tools, the new startups, it all points to a fundamental rethinking of how justice is delivered. So let's zoom out for a second and take a look at what the future of justice might actually hold. And get this, Nigeria isn't just another player in this continental shift.
It's a leader. The data shows that Western Africa is a major hub for these startups, and Nigeria is pretty much the engine driving that growth.
And this number right here, it really says it all. With at least 10 major legal tech startups, Nigeria is one of the top 3 innovation hubs on the entire continent. That puts it in the same league as other big tech centers like Kenya and South Africa. That's a huge deal.
But it's not all smooth sailing. This kind of transition is bound to have some major challenges. The cost of all this new technology is high, and data security is a constant battle. But maybe the biggest hurdle is cultural, just trying to overcome that resistance to change in such a conservative profession. And of course, all of this relies on stable infrastructure, where something as simple as a bad internet connection can throw a wrench in the whole system.
And so this entire journey, all the progress and all the challenges, it leaves us with one final really big question for the future. As all the routine administrative parts of law get more and more automated, what is the new role of the human lawyer? What do they do? That is the question that's shaping the future of justice, not just in Nigeria, but all over the world.